Gil, is there any video about the usage of bound testosterone? If I am correct, albumin and SHBG are binding transportation proteins that bind to testosterone and carry it around. The not bound testosterone is free. That's right. Difference between albumin is that it can be unbound again and SHBG not or less. But my question is, if the bounded testosterone is lost or can be used also, how does this work?
Okay. So yes, albumin and SHBG are both binding proteins that both carry various hormones and medications. They have a binding affinity to things, and they are transport proteins. It is true that albumin is essentially a far weaker bond, and therefore it is easier for the body to cleave that off and detach the hormone or medication or whatever is being carried, which is why, if you'll notice on some lab panels, they will not only issue a free testosterone, they'll also issue bioavailable. Bioavailable testosterone includes the free testosterone combined with the albumin-bound testosterone to make up your bioavailable, because it is still available for your body to use as needed. Now, the SHBG-bound testosterone is not bioavailable, but it is part of your total testosterone because it is still physically present. So I like to tell people to think of SHBG more of like a savings account. You can't go out and write a check out of your savings account per se, but you can move money from savings into checking and then utilize the funds by writing a check or using a debit card. So it's an extra step process that makes that money available to you, and this is the same thing. So SHBG-bound testosterone is part of your total testosterone. It is not free, but as your free testosterone levels begin to decline, your SHBG will begin to release some of that bound testosterone and make it free, which is why it is so essential for us to monitor SHBG specifically so that we know how to frequent and dose a patient so that he always has not only testosterone in reserve, aka total, but his free testosterone is not spiking and crashing and spiking and crashing, but it is slowly released. This is why I always say, if your SHBG is too low, you're going to suffer some symptoms because, yes, your free T will be high intermittently, but when it crashes, there's no binding action to hold on to that testosterone. So another reason why guys with low SHBG tend to have lower total T levels. And what do they normally do? They say, well, I'm injecting 180 or 200 milligrams a week, however you may be splitting that up, but my total T is only in the 600s. I think I need a bigger dose. No, what you need is more SHBG so that your total T can build up. Imagine that savings account doesn't have the capacity to house any more. So essentially, you're never going to be able, right? You're lowering the level of that sink. So once it tops off, it spills over, and you're never able to get it any fuller. That's another reason why older men with elevated SHBG tend to have higher total T levels. And this is why when you check total testosterone on a 60 or 70-year-old, their doctor often says, oh, you're great. You're in the 450s. That's phenomenal for your age. Yes, that's because their SHBG is like 85. So they're not able to utilize any of it. Their free T is in the toilet. They suffer all low T symptoms. And the reason that it's so high is because it's all bound by SHBG and it's never being utilized or excreted. So it's a little more complex. Hopefully, in limited time, I made a little bit of a valid explanation there. But I wouldn't worry too much about albumin-bound testosterone. SHBG is something that I would try to kind of optimize in and of itself, depending on the underlying reasons, of course. So it is a little more complex of a topic, and I generally don't recommend SHBG to be something that you do alone without someone that truly understands all the implications surrounding it.
And now, click on this video to learn more about TRT and hormone optimization.